The the this um, video deals with a synopsis of the book of Wisdom of Solomon, um, uh, or book. It's the book is more philosophical. Of course, it's philosophical. It's more instruction, and I mean, um, the book is addressed to royalty, you know, and in a sense, not only to royalty, but anyone who finds themselves in a position of power, in this case, in a monarch. So anyone who finds himself or herself in a position of power in a government. So it's a book of etiquette. It's a book of philosophy. Yes, it's a philosophical book, albeit if you like um, religious philosophy, but it deals most with etiquette, laws, and the approach basically one needs to have in the dispensation of justice and power. And and uh, he argues this from the position of saying we as rulers ought to love justice, we ought to love that which is good, and we ought to seek just laws and that's what basically he he argues. It's a bit different from. I mean, it's part of the seven books that deal with etiquette and um, um, uh, religious philosophy, and to be contrasted, of course, not to be thought as philosophy of religion, which deals, of course, with metaphysics and ever such thing, but to deal in specific with um, religious philosophy, to deal with um, such matters, as well as to deal with how to run. I mean, it's more a philosophical book and deals with how to run a state, why the behavior of those who are in charge of government and so forth. It is, I mean, we've the postmodern philosophers, and it is in a sense like an earlier thought in that direction and deals with etiquette and and admonishes rulers, people with power. And it can, of course, it is the love of justice, the love of fairness, and it deals with the with thoughts which have become modern. I mean, for those people, for example, the idea that everything is chance or um, has no purpose, it just happens on its own, and that we ought to make the best of what we have. He deals with that as not really being sober. Um, so it is a beautiful book that um, makes one view life more um, 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 the arguments put forward by Machiavelli, and it is a stately religion, stately yeah, it is a stately view on governance and religious, of course, being religion having such an influence on governance at the time and religious philosophy. So it it puts God at the very core of leadership, at the very core of office or royalty, and then it puts um, the royals, governors, and so other officials as servants of God to the people. That is the format of the book. That is basically what it speaks to, and it has some great advice that it says helpful. It is a book much like Proverbs that I think it's a book more, in my view, that the youth would benefit. And it would be a great entry, for example, into politics, into the real workings of life and how life actually is. A great step from childhood into adulthood. For, of course, senior readers, it would be a reflection of how to not forget as adults that life is actually clinical, um, and such things as restraint, choosing to hold your tongue, very crux of adulthood. In that these things of throwing tantrums and whatnot are not really the best. So it is a very good argument to that effect, and it shows God in in a sober sense. It shows God in a very sobering sense. I mean, it does take away, in essence, the mythical situation where people are so taken up into Christianity and into the love of God to kind of subject it, and make it a thing of feelings. And I'm dealing with stuff right now, and I want to cuddle up with God than actually be technical. So it does liven the mind as well. As much as that is cuddling with God is good in its own time, but it does enliven the mind, and God then pushes faith all together. So it is a book like that. So I he sends us out as doves, but we should be as amongst wolves, but we should be lambs amongst wolves, but we should be as wise as as serpents, and as peaceable, of course, as doves. But with that said, I feel it is one of those books when I read, I always think of your 17-year-olds up to your 20-year-olds who are battling with grasping altogether, where they are figuring their own emotions, they're figuring what's appropriate behavior. Now they are forming, like they are forming up to be members of society, and they need clear, you know, um, instruction on etiquette. Like, this is what a man does. This is how to handle emotions. Even if it does not reflect, I mean, does not speak to the modern um, uh, today's etiquettes, it does, however, give an introduction to the person to kind of be affiliated with the fact that there is such things. I mean, children are taught right and wrong, and then there comes the political stuff, you know, and then we have to politicize them, and so that they understand in real terms the world they live in, and so that they sober up in time. So I feel it's a it's a book for young adults, and primarily for me, not because it is naturally, but I feel they benefit from it the most. I mean, older people would would you'd gain, you'd gain a lot from the exercise of the mind and critical thinking and stuff like that. But speak and but for people who are not have not had any introduction into etiquettes, or have not, they've just reacted to it as a norm of life, then also it might enliven them to see the patterns of, oh, actually this is etiquette and so forth, and how etiquettes work and so forth. So it is a beautiful book. May God bless you, and may He come through as you read it, concerning particularly discipline, and how discipline actually is rewarded, how discipline actually gets you there faster. It stops you from being standing in your way. When you stop doing, when you sleep at the right time, for example, you cultivate right habits, they pay off. When you put one and one together, it doesn't start with 10. You put one plus one plus one. These good things done, the small things done properly, put together, those things done right, they get you there. I mean, a lot of people look at life, even if I would use a game model, look at life and you want to win and you need 100, and people always want 100. They are hoping and wishing and praying that 100 just jumps out of nowhere. But discipline teaches you um, that actually, if you do the small things right, they get you there. It accumulates. There's no 100 jumping out of the sky. It sobers everyone up. Um, it speaks about discipline. And I feel that for these people, it will give them the jumps that they need. The young adult to say, if I make these right choices in faith, if I make these choices and I trust God to do these right things and abstain from this and that and this and figure it out like this, it all adds up. But if I do this, I stand in my way. If I do this, I stand in my way. If you live like this, the consequences will come, and they will hinder me when the opportunity actually comes. When the opportunity comes, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So it kind of helps you. It's one of those books that discipline, etiquette, they kind of show you how to have an advantage. By advantage, I mean how to